This is Law for Community Workers Spotlight On, the Shortcut Series podcast for community and health workers produced by Legal Aid New South Wales. My name is Pauline, and I'm from the Community Legal Education branch here in Legal Aid, and we would like to acknowledge that our podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land and pay our respects to Elders past and present. Always was, always will be. Hello everyone, today our guest is Kim, and we're shining the spotlight on Youth Law Australia.
Oh, hello, Pauline. My name's Kim Richardson, and I'm the Principal Solicitor of the General Practice of Youth Law Australia.
And what do you like most about your job, Kim?
What I like most about my job is helping people. I've worked in the community legal sector for more than a decade now, and I find being able to help people with their legal problems is really very rewarding.
And what service does Youth Law Australia provide, and what is a typical matter for your team?
Youth Law Australia is a community legal service that is dedicated to helping children and young people and their supporters to find a legal solution to their problem. Youth Law Australia has a number of different practice areas that we can help children and young people with. Firstly, we have our general practice, and this is where I'm the principal solicitor. This is just like what it sounds. We help people with their general legal problems. If they have debts or fines, housing issues, if they have problems with their tenancy, if they're having problems at school, if they need to make a complaint about how they're being treated at school or if they're being discriminated against.
You also have another specialist practice in the service. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
We also have a harm practice. Now, if a child or young person needs help due to family or domestic violence, if they have been hurt, if they need help making an application for victims' compensation, if they have questions about dating and age of consent, sexting, cyberbullying, our solicitors in our harm practice would be able to provide legal information and legal advice to children and young people about those issues.
That's wonderful. What other services do you have available?
We also have a young workers' rights service. Now, this is an employment law advice service to children and young people. Now, basically, if a young person is having problems at work, if they're not getting paid the right amount of money, if they've been unfairly dismissed from their work, if they're facing discrimination or harassment in the workplace, then the solicitors at the Young Workers' Rights Service would be able to provide legal advice and also, in some instances, be able to provide casework and representation for that young person in the Fair Work Commission or the Australian Human Rights Commission, for example.
So, when you say children and young people, what is the target age group for your client base?
Like our service is aiming to help children and young people up to the age of 25. If there is a young person out there, even if they're not necessarily so young, but if they're under the age of 25 and if they need some legal information or legal advice, then we're the service that they can contact for assistance. We also will, provide information and advice to a child or young person's parent or guardian or a supporter as if they contact our service. So we may not be able to always provide that person with legal advice, but we can certainly provide them with some legal information and, depending on the circumstances, encourage them to have the child or young person contact us directly for legal advice.
Are there any eligibilities to access your service?
No, there are no eligibilities apart from it needs to be someone who is up to the age of 25 who is seeking the advice. We don't have any financial criteria, or I think Legal Aid has a means and matters test. We don't have any of those tests.
So, what's the best way for a community worker to refer someone to your service?
There are quite a few ways that a person can be referred to Youth Law Australia for assistance. A community worker would be able to ring our office directly and make a warm referral over the telephone, we would be able to take the details of the client and then contact the client directly. Community worker could also email us directly and again make a warm referral for that client that they have in mind that needs some legal advice in relation to a particular matter. If it's a situation where the community worker just wants to refer the young person, to our service or let them know that we exist, we do have a number of different ways that clients can contact our service, including using a Get Help Now button on our website, where they would be taken through to a web form where they can provide their information and we would then get back to them in relation to whatever their legal issue is. And in our harm practice, we also operate a live chat on our website. So if you go to our website, which is yla.org.au, there is a chat box that will pop up and that will take you through to a live person who would be able to chat with them and provide them with legal information in relation to their problem. If it's a situation where legal information is just not enough and that the person requires legal advice, we can then obtain some additional contact information and to then follow up with that person directly. It's really important to note that our live chat is completely anonymous. And so, if a young person has a particular question that they're not sure about or are embarrassed asking, they can certainly, contact us through the chat anonymously, ask the question, and then we can provide them with some information.
That's a really wonderful feature to make young people feel safe in talking to your service. That's great.
It's launched this year and we have seen a really steady growth in the number of children and young people accessing the live chat and being able to feel safe in accessing legal information and being able to ask questions in a really safe way.
Does your service deliver any online training or webinars? And do any of you present at conferences?
We have partnered with the Diplomacy Training Program and Australian Lawyers for Human Rights to deliver a series of child rights webinars which cover various aspects of the Convention on the Rights of the Child in discussion with Australian and international child rights experts. And they've been running throughout this year, and we hope that that will be able to continue into the future. We are also happy to provide community legal education to community workers. If a community organisation or community worker is interested in having us come along and deliver some community legal education, they just need to get in contact with us and then we can, follow that up directly with them. And we also do speak at conferences when there's the opportunity to do so.
Wonderful. And where can people find you on social media?
Well, you can find us in quite a few places. We are all over social media. We have a Facebook page, an Instagram page. We are also on TikTok, which is very exciting. And we also have a LinkedIn page. We also have our webpage, which is how a lot of people find our service. And as I mentioned earlier, our web address is yla.org.au.
And as has become tradition, as our final question, what's the one thing that you want any young people that are looking for legal advice to know?
I think it's really important for not only children and young people, but everyone out there to know that there are no silly questions. You might think that you have this really silly question and it's too stupid to ask, and then you just don't worry about it. But there are no silly questions. I think it's really important to, have a space where people can feel comfortable in coming forward and asking a question that's troubling them and being able to then, receive legal information or advice that is able to answer that and help them with that particular issue.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Kim, and for letting us shine the spotlight on the Youth Law Australia service.
That was totally my pleasure, Pauline. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope to hear from some community workers following this podcast.
That was our guest, Kim Richardson from Youth Law Australia. As always, you will find links to all the websites, pages and resources mentioned in this episode listed in our show notes. Or you can email us to cle@legalaid.nsw.gov.au. This has been Spotlight On. Thank you for listening. Goodbye, everyone.